This is Futant, by the way, reporting for Clan Seraphim. Here we go! Opening our first pack of New Phyrexia. Omen Machine, very boring, but Shattered Angel's very good. The draft I won was because of on the back of Shattered Angel. Whip Flare's good. I'm definitely highlighting Shattered Angel here, though. Everything in this pack, there's quite a bit of good stuff. Whip Flare's nice. I think it's less valuable in the current environment because you're gonna have artifacts on the table, and so it's not gonna kill everything like Pyroclasm would. Thundering Tandon, playable in any deck, as I've said in the forums. Gremlin Mine, pretty good most of the time, unless you play that weird person that only does green black infect creatures. Porcelain Legionnaire, good here. Mycosynth Wellspring I like, but I don't necessarily think it's a first pick. And Apostle's Blessing and Mutagenic Growth are great tricks because you don't even have to be white or green to play them. Maul Splicer is a great late pick, you never want it first. So, overall, I think good first pick material is, of course, Angel, Whip Flare, Tanadon, and Porcelain Legionnaire. I'm going with the Angel here because it's just too ridiculous. In this environment, life gain is very relevant. Um, More so than it was when it was just SOM and Betrayers, because Infect made life gain kind of stupid. But here we go. I think Legionnaire's my pick here, but for the fact that I have two other cards that are very enticing. Remember the Fallen is usually a 2-for-1 kind of card. Grim Affliction can be very nice, and Sensor Splicer can be very nice. Slash Panther works in any deck, not just a red deck. It's really hard not to go with the removal here, but I think in my case, the best thing I can do right now is go for the Legionnaire. You can argue with this pick all day long because any argument you make is valid. Remember the Fallen, Grim Affliction are both good cards there, and so was the Slash Panther. I really want to go for this Rage Extractor. I had an NPH draft where I could have done really good things with it, but since this is not purely an NPH draft, Rage Extractor is out of the question here. Porcelain Legionnaire, Remember the Fallen, and Necropouncer. Necropouncer's kind of costly, but in this environment you get to 6 mana regularly. And Living Weapon is always good. So I think that's what I'm going to go with. The thing I like about the Necropouncer the most is that he may be expensive to get out into play, but any creature you're going to put it on later is going to be very cheap to do that. So I would love to have this on a Porcelain Legionnaire or a flying creature of some sort, which I'm bound to get more of. Tezzeret's Gambit, amazing card. That's probably my pick here because it works in anything and it's fantastic. Conversion Chambers are really good. There are always artifacts in the graveyard, and it's relatively easy to operate and use this Conversion Chamber. Lexodon Convert, uninteresting. I would take it. Glista Scorn is fantastic. If you get multiples of these in a deck, you often find very good use for them. But my pick is Tezzeret's Gambit here. I don't really have anything amazing in white. And Conversion Chamber, there are too many play situations where it does nothing. And Tezzeret's Gambit's always going to be a welcome thing to have in my hand. I want to get Bludgeon Brawl to work. It's not going to be today, though. Phyrexian Hulk, okay. Remember the Fallen, pretty good. Parasitic Implant, I'm just not a huge fan of. I would run it if I were thinking of going into black, and I could still be going into black. I don't really know what colors I'm going to end up with. Wellspring is attractive because it's it leaves me open. It's a very modular card to pick here. But my pick is going to boil down to the Slash Panther or Remember the Fallen. And since I'm planning on having a pretty strong white commitment, white weenies and flyers, I'm thinking Remember the Fallen's the way to go. There's going to be several points in the game where I will end up getting 2-for-1 out of that card. Slash Panther is not bad here. I don't like to run any more than 2 copies of Remember the Fallen, and I still think there's going to be one floating around for me later. So I'm going to go for the Slash Panther here, although it's really hard not to go for the Numbing Dose. You know what? I am going to go for the Numbing Dose. Never mind. There's a good chance my second color is going to be blue. As far as power level and what's here, it's probably between the Hulk and the Scorn for me. I have no problem with running 3 colors in this environment, so I'm going to go with the Scorn. Even though it's expensive, Numbing Dose is going to take care of any scary creatures that I don't like Carnifex Demon, Steelkite Hellion, scary things that no one at the table is. You can expect no one at the table to actually have, but if they do, I want to be ready for it. And here, Shrine of the Piercing Vision is nice. It's a nice thing to have. I'm going to go with that, even though the counter is probably the better choice. Every time I've run this card and played it, it's netted me something nice. Due Respect, very boring. And I'm going to put it in. I'm going to grab that because nothing else is particularly good. I could hate draft this Viren, but I'm not overwhelmingly scared of it, so I'm not going to. I'm gonna do Due Respect. It's probably not going to make the undeck, but if it does, I'll experiment with it. I'll play it and see what happens. I really don't want a 3rd copy of Numbing Dose, but nothing else makes sense in this pick. Unless I wanted to hate away a 4/1 infect creature that's too slow to matter. I'll let people play Pestilent Soul Eater. Scrapyard Salvo, I'm not afraid of it, but it was the best card there. And I don't need to talk about these. I'm going to get a Bludgeon Brawl just so I have one for my collection right here. Cost is looking pretty good so far. Oh my goodness. Well, now I'm very glad that I'm in white because this is a free pick for me. Lots of good things are here. Serum Raker would be good for my intended build. Pista Strike, not really. Viridian Claw's okay. Pierce Strider I like more than Peace Strider, and I would gladly run that. And not so much on Mirror and Metal for me. I do not think that I'm going to end up being Metalcraft heavy, but metal is a good trick. I never would first pick it in a pack like this. I would even possibly, if I didn't have the Herald already in the bag, I would consider getting this Burn the Impure because I'm not committed to green. I've got 2 cards, one of which is probably not going to get played. So having Burn the Impure is a great tool against Infect. And and it's not even just against Infect. This could easily just be used against me if I'm playing against a red opponent. Tangle Mantis also very good, a super good staple of any green deck. But clear choice here is Victory's Herald. Nothing amazing here. Virulent Wound is probably the best thing in the pack, and that's not saying much. I'm going to take Corrupted Conscience. I don't really care for the infect part of this, but taking control of somebody's creature is just as good as removing it. Plus, you then get it on your side, so I will gladly take that. Knowledge Pool is too weird. I don't even want to read that card. Sky Hunter for me. I'm hoping to pick up maybe a decent piece of equipment still, and be perfect to slap that onto a Sky Hunter. I already know that I want a very high flying component. I'm going to need some strong ground defense so that I can get to cards like Shattered Angel and Victory's Herald. But anytime I can get a cheap flyer, I will take it. The off chance that I do get some equipment, Brass Squire will fit very nicely in my deck. I do want to point out the fact that all of the Golem creature guys, all of the splicers, all of those splicers are going to affect cards like Hexblade Golem. I don't think people have realized this yet, because people do not pick these as often as they should when they are running splicers. Rhino's no good for me. Brass Squire, clearly my pick. Although I eye this Tangle Hulk, because if I do splash green, that trample ability, or that regenerate ability could be nice. But Brass Squire, not bad. Copper Carapace, I love that card, and it's perfect in a evasion style deck. You don't really want it for defensive purposes, obviously, but when you've got something like Brass Squire in your deck, you can actually use it as a defensive card as well. So, great. This guy has been very good for me. Copper Carapace. I want the Sentinel, but I'm taking the Brass Squire. I just can't let Creeping Corrosion go. I want the Steel Sabotage here, but in case I do have artifacts, I don't want them all wiped in one turn. And I may still use this card as well. Trading Drone I will never take. And there's nothing really good for me here. A fat backside is nice on the Infuser, but I think I'm going to go with Oculus. Worst case scenario, he trades with an Infector, slows down my death, and gets me a card in the process. I like the Raker here, and it's clearly my pick. I would say now that I'm solidly blue-white, with the intent of drafting high evasion, rather. Sure, I'll take the Gust Skimmer. Not an overwhelmingly good card, but it's a good early game dude. I don't want any more Oculi. I'm tempted to get Banishment Decree or Turn the Tide. I'll do one more Oculi. One more Oculus. One more Oculus, giving me 2 Oculi. Very good. Just a card that's gonna put bodies on the table to either be equipped with a Carapace, a Necropouncer, or just to serve as a chump blocker to get me my 5 casting cost or higher spells when I need them. Very low probability that I'm going to be running this green, but it's nice to have. On the off chance that I am playing against a Metalcraft opponent, I would be willing to trim my deck a little bit to make green happen. This is also going to be highly dependent on whether I get Manamir or other things that make that facilitate that. I'll take a boring counter here. I doubt that I'll be running it, but I have the kind of deck that can make use of it, so it's not bad to have. Frantic Salvage is an interesting card for me, far better than a second Fuel for the Cause. And there we go. I gotta turn the tide anyway, so I'm glad I didn't pick that before. I couldn't imagine running more than 2 of those in a deck. Although it's a better card than I think most people give it credit for, including myself, in an environment where a lot of people are running very pitiful 2 to 4 power creatures just because they have the word infect on them. Not to say they're not bad either. I mean, infect being akin to wither does make infect creatures at least better on the trade than most creatures with their same power toughness levels. But as a way to win the game, I have a very hard time with accepting infect's army of weaklings. Horde Smelter Dragon, awesome, but not for me. I would love to grab this guy and sell it for whatever it's going for, if it's still going for anything. But clear pick for me is probably Tumble Magnet. I'm still not thrilled with that. I'd rather have the Sky Guard. Tumble Magnet or Sky Guard. Seal Claws are not bad, but with these other two picks being there, they're definitely the better pick. I don't need the off-color Manamir. I'd like to hate away this Embersmith or the Horde Smelter Dragon. Not a huge fan of Battle Gear. It makes your guys vulnerable, and anything that makes your guys vulnerable is significantly less awesome. And I'm going to go with the Sky Guard here. Tumble Magnet for me would be a temporary solution to a permanent sort of problem. I'll take the Mirrorsmith. I don't have an amazing contingent of artifacts, but you never know what I'm about to pick up. This should be Herald Victorious. Way to go, Herald. Good job. Wow, I'm always getting past Battle Spheres. Any deck that gets to 7 mana and casts a Battle Sphere will usually win. So it's my pick. What I'm really hoping for now is some blue or white Manamirs. I would take a green one, but I doubt I'm going to get them. So that's going to be the hardest challenge for this particular deck. Is it's going to be kind of slow to get onto the table. I only have one Phyrexian creature that I can get onto the table when I'm low on mana. So I want little dudes if I can, early removal if I can. And even though he's not very good, I'll take the Shikari because I, once again, need little dudes that actually affect the board in some way. And, you know, the lifelink on the Shikari, with the inclusion of new Phyrexia, makes him better than he once was. He's pretty awful in SOM block by himself. I don't really like my pick here. It's either Twisted Image or Seize the Initiative. I'm going with Twisted Image just because at worst it gets me a card for 1 mana when I have no answer. May not even end up in the deck. I don't have anything that's really a suitable target for Twisted Image. But it might be something cool for me to do to someone else's stuff. Although it'd be interesting to Twisted Image a Mirror Battlesphere. It could get very interesting, actually. Very happy to see a Glint Hawk. I don't have enough artifacts for this guy, though. And I don't think I'm going to get him in the last few picks. So normally this would be a resounding pick for me. But basically it looks like for me in this pack, it's Iron Mirror or a Quarter Shield. And a Quarter Shield goes on every creature I own, and Iron Mirror just gets me some colorless mana. So, Quarter Shield it is. I'm fine with getting a Scrap Diver Serpent here. My curve is kind of high. This means I'm probably going to be running one less copy of Numbing Dose, maybe two less copies of Numbing Dose. When Scrap Diver Serpent hits the table and you're not dying the next turn, he wins the game, pretty much. Most of the time. I don't have much of a chance of getting Metalcraft. So I will take a boring counter here, because it's the only thing that really makes sense for me, and nothing in that pack was really scary for me. I've noticed with some MBS and NPH, the decks, my decks at least, tend to be a little bit creature light. It concerns me a little bit, um, because you would think that that would make you more vulnerable to removal and stuff, but in my experience, the deck that wins usually has more creatures in it, but removal doesn't tend to be as good if you've got the right kind of build. I mean, if you've got cards like Remember the Fallen to defray the effectiveness of removal, um, then you're usually okay. You can usually just let them cast out their hand and then know that you're going to have a stronger board position. Nobody likes red. Trainee is really what I want to pick here, but almost every time I see this guy in play, he never gets to that critical mass where he does any good. So a lot of times Heartstoker actually has been used effectively against me. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out of there. It's an early game creature that I don't want to see against me. So I love Turn Aside. Cards like Turn Aside are some of my favorite things because it's basically oh, you're going to hurt my stuff? Forget about it, buddy. That can be you that's the target. It can be your stuff that's the target. I will. I'm always glad to run a Turn Aside. None of these cards work for me. I want to hate the Spell Bomb because whoever's in red really got a field day with things like the Horde Smelter Dragon and other stuff that was pretty good over there. But I'm going to take another Twist Image. Probably not to run it, but I've got it if I want it. Turn Aside, fantastic. I love Turn Aside. Those will both make the main deck because they shut down removal. White Sun's Passage, a much better card now. Probably not in my final deck, but we'll see. Let's see, is that an instant?